have been joined by Honorable Alhassan Suhuyini, who's MP for Tamale North, and we're also expecting Yabuabing Asamoah, who's the Director of Communications for NPP. Good morning, Honorable. How are you?
I'm terrific, Ifa. Good morning. Good
Thank you so much for being here. I mean, it's a rainy Monday morning, so
it's a pleasure.
We are happy you're here. Give us your general overview of the budget yesterday. Of course, it's a Thursday morning.
Well, let me say good morning to our viewers and especially the very good people of the Tamale North constituency. And I think generally my feelings are not different from the feelings of majority of Ghanaians.
Okay.
If you notice yesterday, many people treated the budget presentation with a lot of apathy.
Okay.
Simply because over the years, perhaps they have not really had the budget speaking to their everyday problems. So if you, for example, visited the Agbogbloshie markets, Abuk-Sokai markets, if you went to Makola, if you went to any of the lorry stations yesterday, there to bring up a conversation about the presentation of a budget, you were greeted with a lot of despondency. Okay. And that, for me, speaks volumes of the level of disappointment that people have in the assurances that they have been given by this government since 2017. Because in 2017, especially after the budget presentation, you saw jubilations in town because they expected so much. And all of that goodwill, unfortunately, has been wasted away by the inability of the government to live up to expectations. So yesterday was just one of those moments where you had the finance minister largely engaging in propaganda. Okay. And I was quite intrigued that my majority leader said the debate of the budget should not be about propaganda, but pragmatism. Because clearly, anybody who listened to the finance minister at some point, you were left wondering if this was actually about, the fiscal policy of government. I mean, the stories, the preachings,
let's take a look at
the
some
sermons,
of the things that the finance minister said. And I'm reading
didn't
from...
make sense, yes.
Sense to you. Okay, let me read from citynewsroom.com. It says, hashtag GH budget. We've spent 12.2 billion in policy interventions. That's 12.2 billion Ghana cedis in 3 years. That's coming from the Finance Minister, Ken Ofori-Atta. I'm going to read briefly here. The Finance Minister, Ken Ofori-Atta, has said that the Akufo-Addo-led government has, for the past 3 years, spent more than 12 billion Ghana cedis on implementing key social intervention policies that have brought about relief to Ghanaians. So he's talked about, government putting more money in the pockets of Ghanaians. I'm going to break down some of the things he mentioned. Free SHS has saved parents a total of 1.8 billion Ghana cedis with the last 3 years, and that money is in their pockets. Planting for Food and Jobs has saved farmers a total of 844 million Ghana cedis over the last 3 years for subsidized fertilizer, and that is money in their pockets. A total of 357 million Ghana cedis have been put in the pockets of teacher trainees within the last 3 years. So he goes on and on and on. 336 million for nurses, BECs being subsidized with a total of 65 million Ghana cedis, electricity tariffs as of March 15, 2018, resulting in 1.8 billion Ghana cedis for the year for residential and non-residential customers. The reduction and abolition of taxes, including 50% reduction on import duty. So, Honorable, this seems like it's targeted to the average Ghanaian, and we're saving money in education. Our teachers are happy, our students are satisfied, our nurses are fine, Ghanaians are feeling it. And I mean, it's 12.2 billion Ghana cedis. It's a lot of money.
Thankfully, you and I are average Ghanaians. We are ordinary Ghanaians. And so I will want you perhaps to tell the viewers how much of the 12 billion that you have in your pocket or your account. I mean, that is the insult that, you know, the government makes out
But
to
there
people.
are students there who are going to school for free, and their parents don't have to pay that money.
Well,
Right? And there are nurses who are being paid now, so they don't have to go outside and demonstrate that they've not been paid. Patients are being taken care of. Isn't there some merit to it?
well, I'll deal with the issue of students. The students who are given free education talk to their parents, talk to they themselves, and the stories that you hear will make you appreciate the cost of the free.
Okay.
The cost of the free.
Which is?
In some cases, some of these parents, because of the double track that this whole free has brought upon us, parents are paying more for private tuition when their wards are home for 3 months or 4 months,
Okay.
so that their children do not lose out on academic work. So they are having to pay more for private tuition for their children.
But can you compare your child being home for 3 months and, you know, getting access to 9 months of free education to having to pay your child's education for the entire year? And the private school tutoring, that's optional. You can choose to homeschool your child yourself and teach them whatever it is that they are learning, right?
You speak as if we have 70% or 80% of our parents being educated or literate.
Yeah, but it's still an option to pay for private
It's still
tutors
cost.
for the child.
That is still cost.
Yes, but it's still optional.
It's not optional. For
Really?
some, unless you do not want your children to do well, what will your child be doing home for 3 months?
But the alternative would have been paying for your child's education without any support from the government.
Well, so the alternative of paying is that you have your child stay home for 3 months and do nothing. The fact that you don't pay, you want your child to be at home, and that is the most difficult period of a child's life. That is the teen ages.
Well,
and the child is home
The
for
3 months
3,
are
4
breaking
months.
down. It's
Yes.
not like a full...
No, in some cases it's a full 3 months. If
Okay,
you are in the green
so-
track, you are home for 3 months.
Okay.
You are home for 4 months. If you are in the blue track, you are or whatever track.
There's no-
yeah,
there's
well,
no- there's
but
no- I don't
it
think there's
sometimes
a blue
looks
track.
like
There's-
blue,
there's
red,
no
and
blue-
white
there's no
tracks.
blue track.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, if, depending on the track that you are
Right.
on, when you are on holidays, sometimes you stay home for 3 months.
Okay.
So that's the point I'm making. And it is only a parent, I believe, who cannot afford, who will not want to engage the child, you know, profitably, or if you like, in a private, you know, to have private tuition within that period. Again, in some cases, some of the parents have had to rent accommodation for their children, to live in communities that they have no supervision whatsoever, and they're exposed to all the dangers that you can think of, even including kidnapping, since we have kidnapping these days. They are exposed to all of that. In some cases, they have to, you know, not just pay accommodation, you know, rent accommodation for them. They also have to even, you know, provide them with if they were paying fees, they wouldn't have had to provide
Do
the
you
children.
agree that every child deserves the right to free education, and that there are students currently who have been out on our streets serving as maids in people's homes, who don't have to do that anymore because they now have access to free education? Those people don't even have any parent to pay for any private tutors for them, but they now have access to free education. Do you agree?
I hope that this discussion will not be reduced into free.
It's not. It's not at all.
Because
we're
there
gonna
is
continue.
simply no contest or debate about free education.
Okay.
Everybody in this country agrees
Okay.
that it is an imperative.
Okay.
Everybody agrees.
Okay.
The approach
Is the
and the
issue.
need to make it serve a useful purpose and not just for political, you know, reasons is where the debate is. So there's simply no question about the importance of free education.
Okay.
It is in our constitution long before even we went into the election of 2000, and nobody is against that. But I'm saying that if the Minister of Finance comes to Parliament and claims that he has put 12 billion Ghana cedis in our pockets, it is important that we ask ourselves how, you know, how we feel that 12 billion, because I don't feel it.
Okay.
I pay more for fuel than I used to. I pay more for electricity than I used to. And I know many people do.
Okay.
I pay more for transportation than I used to. I mean, I go to my constituency almost bi-weekly, and I know how much I used to pay. I know how much I pay now when I'm going there. And like I just said, yes, the education may be free, but it costs more in some cases for parents to keep their children even in that free environment that the government has created. So when you turn around and make it look as if we are ungrateful, and like some of their communicators have said, that it is only witches in this country who are complaining, then it smacks of, you know, not just dishonesty, but insensitivity. And I don't think a government should, you know, move in that direction. Look, you talk about some of the new taxes. For example, the government has increased their communication service tax by
but they're
about
saying
50%.
That we won't experience any increase in taxes come 2020.
Is that also true? Okay. That is the question we have to ask ourselves. For example, you have the fiscal stabilization levy. Now, this was a levy that President John Mahama and the NDC introduced into the 2016 budget. Why? Because we had, I think it was a 2015 budget, we had commodity prices at the time, you know, going down, gold, cocoa, and others going down. And in order to shore up revenue so that they will not have to cut down on expenditure, this was introduced with sunset clauses. So what it meant was that it was just introduced for the period, so that maybe when oil prices and gold prices and cocoa prices come up, it will be taken off. And it was introduced to last for just 2 years. So by 2017, this fiscal stabilization levy was supposed to have expired. But then the NPP that criticized the NDC and John Mahama for introducing it came into office in 2017 and decided not to just maintain it, but to extend it for 2 years. And so they extended it from 2017 to 2019. Now, in this 2020 budget, one would have thought that after extending it dishonestly for 2 years, they would have, you know, allowed it to expire. But guess what? They have extended it again for another 3 years. That is a new tax. That is introducing a new tax. Again, it is not even relevant at this point because it was introduced for a purpose. The purpose was to make up for the shortfall that the country was experiencing as a result of the falling commodity prices. Today, those commodity prices are appreciable. And so government does not need this shore up again. Yet, they have decided to extend it in the 2020 budget by another 3 years, extending it for 5 years. After they lambasted the NDC for introducing it just for 2 years. It was to last for 2 years. And I'm assuring you that if the NDC had been in power, you wouldn't be paying that levy that they have extended for 3 years. So the finance minister is being, you know, for lack of a better word, dishonest when he says that there is no new tax because Parliament will be approving that new extension of a tax.
Okay. So that is just the only tax that
it is not. It is not. It is not the only tax.
Let's take a look at roads.
We know, for example, ESLA.
Finance. Okay, but let's take a look at the roads. The finance minister said 2020 is the year of roads. So we have the first phase of the Sino Hydro deal, which is $646 million on the Tamale Interchange, Prestia, and Cape Coast inner city roads, selected feeder roads in the Ashanti region and the Western region, Hohoi, Jasikan, Dodo Pepesu Road. And government has also been able to mobilize financing of over 150 roads nationwide. They go on to say that government will be paying the contractors 80% so that they'll start working. Isn't that progress?
I wish I could say it is, but I mean, go and look at the 2019 budget. Because I was late, I left it in the car. I would have shown you the pages, word for word. Word for word. In 2019, that's why I began by saying there's a lot of apathy and despondency. In 2019, all these roads were listed, and assurances were that they were going to be done in 2020. 2019.
So you don't believe that come next year we will see all
It's not about what I believe. It's about the deception. It's about the consistent, spewing up of what they don't mean. And if you look at even why some of these roads are in the conditions that they are in today, you realize that we have been set backwards a lot by the decisions of this government, because some of these roads were under construction. The NPP came into office and abandoned them, have not been maintaining them, and they have deteriorated further. They said they were carrying out audits. The roads were at various levels of completion. They abandoned most of them, said they were carrying out audits. The audits ended without, any wrong thing being found against anybody. Now, continue with the projects. You have the government that has made so much, especially because of the investments that the previous government did in the oil sector. The government is now getting, in some cases, about thrice how much Ghana was getting from oil under the previous regime. Thanks to the investment made in the Sankofa and ENI, fields. They are getting so much money from oil. They have also borrowed over 88.5 billion Ghana cedis. That's almost, the same as the NDC government borrowed in 8 years. Yet, everything is spent on recurrent expenditure, consumption. And so, these critical infrastructure that help for production and the growth of a country are left unattended to. And that is why, in this 2020 budget, some of us were hopeful that, for example, the cap that they have on the National Health Insurance Levy, the cap that they have on, the road fund, especially, will be removed so that these agencies will have money enough to carry out, its mandate. But the cap is still on, and the money that is denied these institutions are put in areas that, are not sustainable, that do not support production and that do not support, growth. So when and we were hoping that if they remove this cap, they will invest more in infrastructure. They will invest more in capital expenditure. But again, the experts will tell you the investments even in the 2020, it's maybe because it's also an election year, is more into consumption, is more into buying and distributing stuff. And so I have even my doubts if these roads will get the needed attention, given the amount of money that has been allocated to capital expenditure. I have my doubts, seriously, if these roads will get the attention that it deserves. I think that we need that critical infrastructure. Look, roads have a way of transforming economies. It's no country in the world has ever developed from third world to first world without first paying attention to the infrastructural needs of the country. Just imagine, even if you want to localize it, what a road in a community does to values of properties. If you had a house by a roadside, the value of the house appreciates when the road that was not tarred is tarred. I mean, there is opportunity to even, start businesses by the roadside. And so they are critical when it comes to, growth in an economy. And the interesting part of this is that, you have the finance minister talk about road contractors that they are paying or they are planning to pay, and yet he attempts to make mockery of, the John Mahama Green Book roads. And I ask myself, then why are you paying contractors? If they didn't do any roads, why are you paying them? Are you just interested in throwing our money away?
No, so that they can get to work. But of course, we're still discussing
they said they verified before they pay.
We're going to go for a quick break. We've talked about the free SHS bit. We've talked about our roads. Up next, we'll be looking at revenue mobilization and, of course, government securing $250 million for National Development Bank. Some of that will go into agriculture and manufacturing. And, of course, we want to hear from you. So if you have any questions or comments, let us know with the hashtag Breakfast Daily, and the WhatsApp line is 0550-585-832. We'll be right back. Welcome back. This is Breakfast Daily on CCTV. Thank you so much for staying with us. Now, remember that if you want us to hear from you, use the hashtag Breakfast Daily and the WhatsApp line 0550-585-832. I still have with me Honorable Alhassan Suhuyini, who's MP for Tamale North, and Yabu Abena Samwa just joined us, who's the Director of Communications for NPP. Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you?
I must say I'm embarrassed.
Oh, you should be.
I'm well, but thoroughly embarrassed.
What happened?
You don't want Suhuyini to hear it.
Oh, come on. I'm sure our viewers are wondering what happened.
They should just forgive me.
They should
I
forgive
am
you.
embarrassed.
That's fine.
Thoroughly embarrassed.
That's perfect.
They don't deserve this. No excuse is sufficient
Okay.
for expectations of your viewers.
But we're grateful that you were able to make it. So we'll delve right into the second point that we're discussing this morning. I'm reading from page 3 of the Business and Financial Times, and it says $250 million secured for the National Development Bank. So the Minister of Finance, Ken Ofori-Atta, talked about how we've secured some money. So I'm going to quote him briefly. We have secured $250 million from the World Bank as an initial capitalization to kickstart the operations of the National Development Bank, and an interim board was set up. The Development Bank will also lend through specialized banks to key anchor industries at the metropolitan, metropolis, and district assemblies level to support the 1D1F. He goes on to talk about supporting large-scale agro-processing, housing, through various schemes and funds as needed for economic and social development and jobs. He also goes on to talk about how we're going to help manufacturing, hospitality, and tourism, which I find really interesting because the Trade Union Congress and AGI are expressing some concerns. So I read this first. We're going to connect it to the Finder, page 4. It says, shift trade policy to favor local businesses, TUC. The Trade Union Congress of Ghana is pushing for a drastic change in Ghana's trade policy in favor of local businesses. The union has told government that there is the need to change our trade policy to support domestic businesses and production. So I'm going to quote some of the concerns they raised. They say we can double the tariff or custom duties we charge on poultry products without violating the rules of the World Trade Organization. This, in combination with other policy measures, can support the domestic poultry value chain and create more jobs. We can do the same for tomatoes, rice, and sugar value chains. And we all know that Nigeria has already started this as far as, beefing up the local rice production. AGI also goes on to say local businesses in Ghana have the potential to compete with foreign companies in Africa and other parts of the world. Unfortunately, the 50% reduction in benchmark value at the country's port is stifling their growth. So, Yabu Abena Samwa, I'll allow you to talk about the $250 million from the World Bank and then address the issues of some of our local business organizations.
Thank you very much. First of all, one needs to realize that an economy must be internally coherent. Mm-hmm. When I say internally coherent, I mean it must be able to deliver goods and services in a coordinated chain, mm-hmm. whilst generating jobs and incomes. Okay. That's why internationally we talk about competitiveness. Mm-hmm. Where you have an advantage in something, mm-hmm. it means that as you do it organically and naturally, you generate jobs, mm-hmm. and you generate incomes, and you generate taxes. Yeah. And of course, savings that you also use to invest in your capital output in terms of roads and other things. So it is dependent, all of this is dependent and anchored on a sound financial system. Okay. In other words, it takes money. Mm-hmm. Everything you do takes money to do. Mm-hmm. The money must be available, it must be reasonably cheap, and it must go into investments that will return mm-hmm. the ability to pay. So if you have a financial sector mm-hmm. that is unable to meet the needs of investments in key areas, then you have difficulties. Because essentially your economy will then be running on debt. And debt is tough. Debt is not sustainable. Out of the projected 85.9 million or so that we are to spend, over half, nearly half, I think it's over half, is going into wages and salaries. And interest payments.
Isn't that the more reason why you should be listening to TUC and AGI so that they can go and employ more Ghanaians?
It's not overnight. I'll get there. It's a process. That's why I said it has to be internally
But they're
coherent.
saying you can start with at least increasing tariffs.
But we've started with
and also
else.
increasing the benchmark
we've started
for values that are coming into the country.
We've started with something else. Cereals, other things have also increased. In the agricultural sector, we've grown from 2.9% to over 6%. And that means that other things have come on board. Planting for food and jobs is making tremendous strides.
Yes, but we can also say something like what Nigeria is doing. We're closing our borders down. We're going to not allow certain products in so that Ghanaian businesses can grow. Because if you walk over to just Makola or Kantamanto right now, somebody in Ghana is manufacturing a fabric locally, selling them at 15 cedis per yard. That person is employing Ghanaians. They are paying their taxes. The person next door will just go on to China, fabricate that thing, dump it on the market, and compete with them at 7 Ghana cedis for the same exact thing.
Nigeria
How will those businesses
its borders.
survive?
I don't think it's the best practice for us. It is not.
Why?
We belong to a World Trade Organization, the General Agreement on Trade and Tariffs. We also belong to the Africa Free Trade area, which Nigeria has decided to sign on to. We also belong within ECOWAS to free movement of goods and persons. We are not an island. Nigeria is not an island. Indeed, Nigeria, if it regulates its markets well, stands to benefit the most from expanded market opportunities because of its vast population. I don't think crude protectionism is the way to go.
What's the way to
Having come to Ghana, the way to go is to structure your economy and get there.
How
we
do
have
we
to
do that?
start from somewhere.
How do we
And that's
do
what we are doing now.
How
We are getting a development bank which will on lend to key areas to industrialize better, resiliently, get our industry going. We have developed an agricultural sector which is giving us more and more opportunity to provide raw material that can be fed into the industry we are growing. So you have an agro-industrial business. If you have an agro-industrial business, then it means that you are creating employment because many of our people are in the rural areas and are already naturally attached to the land. So their output gets sucked into this agro-industrial complex. And that's why we started 1D, 1F, which is the one which will pick up these products from low level and process for value. So you are generating employment, you are generating incomes for the farmers at that level. As you go forward, the product mix can be expanded.
Okay, so Mr. Asamoah,
let me jobs as well.
Let me mention the World Bank.
The poultry matter. Yes, the poultry matter is an outstanding matter that has been ongoing. And I sincerely believe that government will sit up and look at the question of how it meets the protein needs of this country. Because it's not just poultry. For over several years, we've been importing pig feed trotters, beef. We've been importing all manner of things. So if we are developing a rearing for food and jobs with an object to meeting local protein needs and export with the rest, then naturally the entire mix will be looked at as we go forward.
Let's come to the salaries you mentioned. So we are getting $250 million from the World Bank, yet we are also spending 23 billion Ghana cedis to pay salaries. Don't you think if we were able to help local businesses stay competitive, they will be able to employ these people and we won't have to spend 23 billion Ghana cedis on salaries in the country?
Why not?
Why haven't we done it?
Because we haven't done it. This is our 4th budget, and we are getting there. Because we've raised agriculture, which is a source of alternation. We've raised the share of industry, which is a source of alternation. Before then, where were we? It was all services.
But in your manifesto, respectfully, in your manifesto, you said we were going to go from taxation to production.
That's exactly
what we wanted to see was at least more local businesses coming out to say, because of this new government, we have our products, our finished products on the market. Ghanaians are able to afford these products. Our businesses are growing. We're able to employ people. We are not seeing that.
We are not far away.
Okay.
We are not far away. Over 10,000 people have been employed so far under 1D, 1F
10,000
yes,
people.
It was in the budget statement. Over 10,000 direct jobs.
Okay.
And another, probably, was it 53,000 indirect from 1D1F. It is a process, like I said, you need internal coherence. From a situation where everything is being imported, literally everything is being imported, and you are aware of it.
Yes.
Yes, to a situation where we are saying that rather than focus on import-based taxes and taxes on those things, let us gradually take off taxes and incentivize the people who produce. And in doing so, we've established clear programs. 1D1F is one of that.
Okay.
Planting for food and jobs is one of that. Rearing for food and jobs is one of that. And what is the logic in there? An agro industry, because we are competitive. We have the land. We have the climate conditions. We have natural conditions for developing an agro-based industry. So we are focused on that. So when you realize that the incentives we have given Ghanaians to go into business, and 1D1F is not only about new businesses, it's about old businesses as well.
So
we
Mr.
have
Mr.
supported 38 old businesses to revamp themselves.
Okay.
So manufacturing and all those things, they don't come overnight. They
Let's
require
say I'm manufacturing
investment.
a pen. I'm manufacturing a pen for the benefit of our viewers locally. I'm part of the 1D1F initiative.
Yes.
Government, I've received all of the support I need.
Yes.
After I finish producing this pen,
Yes.
I'm selling it for 1 cedis.
Yes.
Somebody else will go outside,
Yes.
get that pen for 20 pesos,
That's
or
right.
let's even say 30 pesos.
Right.
There's no tariff on that pen
Right.
because we've reduced it, right? So they come into this country and they are selling it to the Ghanaian consumer for
Very well.
40, 50 pesos. How am I supposed to grow my business on my output enough to employ Ghanaians?
2 questions there, and they are all process issues. Because 1, you want to protect your local people, and 2, you also want to make them remain competitive by reducing the cost of their output. There are structural changes in the world now in terms of how production is done. For example, if you want to revive a cloth factory in Ghana that uses a loom, manual and mechanical loom,
Which most of our cloth manufacturers don't do, actually.
no,
when
no.
you go to GTP and the likes,
I'm
they
giving you an
actually
example.
print them.
If the cost of producing the item compared to elsewhere is very, very high, then you are faced with the 2 issues. The maintaining an open-based market, and then ensuring that cost comes down. Because in a sense, if you also keep high prices in certain areas here for the benefit of the manufacturers, you are punishing your consumer. You are punishing your consumer. So how do you balance your consumer's ability and opportunity to get a 50p pen compared to the protected 1 cedi pen? It's a balance that a government must work on.
Please answer the question first.
It's a balance that a government must work on. So the government will gradually deal with incentives that generate lower costs for local manufacturers, as well as other measures in terms of engaging the international scene on products that we are competitive in and products that we are not. It's a process. It is not an overnight thing. It's definitely a process. The important thing is that the government is alert and things are happening.
Awesome. Final question for you,
These
then I'll
things are
allow
happening.
Honorable respond, and that's the percentage on borrowing, right? So local businesses have to, they have to borrow at 25%. The people they are competing with, sometimes 5%, 10%. How are these businesses supposed to grow under these conditions?
We inherited a trending rate of over
Which is
33%.
why we voted. Voted for change.
Now, the 3 key indicators in that area. One is that the T-bill rate, which tends to be a reference point, has stabilized at a little over 14%.
Okay.
That's excellent. It used to be up there, stratospheric. So that we hope will drag down the other indices. Don't forget, it's not fixed by government fiat. Lending rates are not fixed by government fiat. But government monetary policy sends signals that we have brought our base rate to this level. So try and push down. So that is in process. To have brought down that to 14% is magnificent. 2 is that exchange rates, which also impact lending rates indirectly, are more or less stabilizing within a band.
How so?
There is not fluctuation so heavily. Stabilizing within
Are
a
you
band.
satisfied with where we are now?
We can never be satisfied until production and incomes
Which
exceed
brings us back to our
consumption
point.
and debt and borrowing, which is where
Have we done enough as far as production is concerned?
We are working very
to
hard.
decrease our dependence on imports?
We are working very hard.
Have
That's
we
why
done
we are
enough
saying
in your
that
estimation?
one good term deserves
in 3
another.
years, in
One
3
good
years,
term
do you think
deserves
we've
another.
done enough to
One good
produce
term deserves
enough so
another.
that
we
we don't depend so much on the dollar?
I think so far, in terms of discipline, in terms of realigning, in terms of giving a vision on the way forward, which is what the budget has achieved, we are doing well.
So you're satisfied?
My satisfaction is subject to
especially since your
work.
manifesto said we're going from taxation to production,
Yeah,
and
but
Ghanaians were assuming once we produce enough, at least our demand for the dollar will go down to a point where we won't have to talk about exchange
rates. Have you gone through the entire budget?
Yes, I have.
You realize that it is an analysis of what has happened from 2017 to 2019,
yes,
and how we project to consolidate those things.
Okay.
That is what the budget is about.
Okay.
So this budget is more or less one that will give us the flying takeoff.
Okay.
Because the good things we've done are all concretized here.
Okay.
We are not going back. We are not overloading the initiatives. We are making sure that the things we have done are on a solid footing. Because that is what will enable us go into the second term.
Okay. So you're talking about exchange rates?
Yes. So I'm saying that given the performance from 2017 to date, I am happy at the bandwidth within which exchange rates are.
Okay.
And in that sense, given the lowering also of the treasury bill rate, as well the third part as the inflation.
Okay.
We are down to 7.6, the best in over 27 years.
How does that translate to the average?
Thank you very much. One, it enables planning.
Okay.
If you know that the rate of increase of prices. Inflation is not about reduction in prices. It's about the rate of increase in existing prices. So if you know that your price increase rate is minimal, under 10%, you can plan. For a household, for a business, for a bank, for everybody, you can plan. Because you know that if I invest so much, it will stay stable and I'll return so much. For the individual, your ability to spend from your household also becomes certain.
Okay.
You know that prices are stable enough. The cost of your cocoa will remain the same. Usually what happens is that they will take the same money for the cocoa, but they will reduce the quantity if things are expensive. Or they will reduce the size of your kose.
Assuming that there's not a Nigerian trader who has, just got like 5-10% on whatever loans they went to get, and they are selling the cocoa for 50% less than you are, and you are agitating.
These three factors will drag down the lending rates.
Okay. The
T-bill rate, which is going down, the relative stability of the exchange rate, and the inflation that is being held below 10%. These will naturally drag down the lending rate.
Thank you very much. Honorable Suhuyini.
I've had a good time listening to my very good friend, Honorable Bobby Asamoah. I mean, it's interesting. Some time ago in this country, it was almost like Judgment Day will come. The world will come to an end if the CD dollar exchange rate cross 5 cedis. Do you remember? In fact, pastors preached about it. They said, hey, I mean, $1, $1 Ghana, 1 CD, 5 CD, hey, like it was as if Armageddon was going to happen if we crossed the 5 CDs mark.
Okay.
Today, he says, even beyond the 5 CDs mark, it's all right. I mean, it's fine. Because they are in charge.
No, I mean, at least, we've made some progress. We are not in the energy crisis anymore, so businesses can at least manufacture.
Let me tell him why. From 1.2 to 4.7 was dangerous.
Please, it wasn't 1.2. Again, your calculation is wrong. But I will not go there. I will appreciate that if you allow me to make the point. You see, you talk about energy crisis. Energy crisis was not imported. It was not as a result of the negligence of the previous government. It was as a result of consistent, deprivation of the sector over the years. But it just happened at the time, and that government fixed it before it left office. So it's neither here nor there. It fixed it before it left office. So I'm saying that exchange rate was not, according to them, the cedi shouldn't have crossed 5 cedis. Today, it crosses 5 cedis, it's almost 5 cedis 30 pesos, and he says it is fine. I mean, Ghanaians can endure. He talks about interest rate, and he says, well, it doesn't necessarily mean that prices are going to come down, but it has an impact. I don't disagree with that at all, I don't, because that is an argument that is true, that interest rate does not necessarily mean that prices are going to come down. My problem, however, is that...
I said inflation rate, not interest.
Sorry, inflation. I also meant inflation, and not interest. I meant inflation. Rate, yeah. So my problem, it is a correct argument that inflation does not necessarily mean, prices are going to come down. My problem, however, is the flip-flopping.
Okay.
When you are in opposition, you have a different interpretation of it, and when you are in government, then you come to the correct definition. In fact, Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, who is now our vice president, held lectures in this country and asked us, especially those of us in the NDC, to give our wives single-digit inflation chop money if we think it meant anything. If we thought it meant anything, we should go and give our wives single-digit inflation chop money. Today you tell me that it means something.
Yes.
And you want me to take you serious. What do you call me, a fool? You deceived me that it didn't mean anything because the NDC attained it, but all of a sudden it means so much because the MPP has attained it.
Stand alone, it means nothing.
That's what I'm saying. It was not standing alone. It was the inflation. It was the first time Ghana had the single-digit inflation and the longest sustained ever. It was also that time that the GDP was growing at 14%.
1 year.
Yes,
14%.
yes. It was that same time.
Year.
I'm telling you, it was that same time. It was that time that interest rates started coming down and have consistently been coming down since. Consistently. It was that point that it started coming down and hasn't gone up yet. So when I listen to him, tout those things today, I just have a good laugh. But you see, on the issue of, the National Bank, again, sometimes I don't know why we do this to ourselves as a country. I mean, I'm young but old enough to remember OSA, one of our public transport systems in this country, put on divestiture, removed in 2002, and facilitated the introduction of Metro Mass Transport. So we rebranded it Metro Mass Transport, and the story is as if it was only President Kufuor who thought of public transport in this country. Whatever OSA did since 1927 didn't matter anymore. It is an NPP thing. And then you look at today. The President Mahama government launched the YES, that is Youth Enterprise Support. The NPP came. All they have done is to change the name to NEIP, and they are doing basically the same thing.
Okay.
But now,
so at least it's continuum, so that's a good thing.
It's continuum, but I'm getting to a point. Look, the NDC inherited the National Health Insurance Scheme at a time that it was a mutual health insurance scheme. If you registered in Adabraka, you could not get health in Adenta. We turned it into a truly national health insurance scheme. You didn't have to rebrand it. You see, what am I driving at?
Yes.
We had an Exim Bank. I'll just share with you the vision of the Exim Bank. National Bank is important, but why do we do this? I mean, sometimes you wonder if it is just for political expediency. The Exim Bank is still functional. It's there, but maybe it's because it was an initiative of the previous government. All of a sudden, attention is not given to it. And we are going to create a vehicle that is, in my view, going to do almost the same thing that the Exim Bank was set up to do. Look at the vision of the Exim Bank. It says, to become a strong financial institution, that will be a key engine in the development of Ghana's export trade, facilitate cross-border trade, and make Ghana a pillar in regional and continental trade. Now, yes. What do we need to export? We need to support industries to produce, to also, process what we produce, so that where we have competitive advantage, we export. So if you have such an institution that is fledgling, I mean, it is new, it is trying to find its footing, and you have money, you have ideas. Why don't you strengthen it? Why don't you strengthen the Exim Bank so that it can play this, all-important role?
Is there anything wrong with both of them coexisting?
I mean, this hasn't even taken off.
Okay.
We already have experiences with why we set up Agri Development Bank and where it is today. It's not really doing what it was set up to do. We have the National Investment Bank after struggles to, hijack it.
Okay,
We are
so
now
I have to give Honorable a chance to respond. So thank you very much. In 50 seconds,
Once
please.
when it comes to the history of this country, he realized that the NDC has had longer than any other government to try and deal with these matters.
Go ahead.
But then,
Address some of the concerns.
But then, economic indices are internationally known. And nobody creates the indices by themselves. Therefore, whatever Dr. Bawumia said, a man of international repute, has run other country economies.
Okay.
He was bang in line.
That's
he
fine.
meant what he said,
Okay.
and it's working out. He's the one
he
managing
meant
the
it.
economy now, too.
He meant it.
Yeah, he meant it.
That inflation
The
doesn't
Exim
mean
Bank,
anything.
The Exim Bank
If your wife
is
cannot
doing
shop with
very,
it.
very, very, very well. It's doing very, very, very well. It does not preclude the establishment of another development bank to onward finance banks to keep them strong enough to finance other things internally.
You are collapsing banks.
Oh, please.
Unfortunately, we have run out of time.
Yes.
but
You setting
briefly,
up banks
just
where you
one,
are collapsing
10
banks.
seconds.
The exchange rate that they were afraid would cross 5. We were genuinely afraid because from 1.2 you were heading towards 5.
It's not-
Under
it
your
wasn't-
watch,
yes,
we have remained within the band of 4.9 to 5.3. We are doing well. We are doing very well.
All right, thank you very much. Honorable Yaw Buavina Samoa is Director of Communications, MPP, and Honorable Al Hassan Suhini is MP for Tamale North. Thank you both for making it this morning, and thank you at home for staying with us. Hi guys, I hope you enjoyed this video.
Subscribe to our YouTube channel, The City Tube.
For exclusive Breakfast Daily content and other City TV programs.
Like, comment, and share with your friends.